It's not stopping there, Chris. Wednesday, more storms expected here along the upper Midwest. We've got our very slow-moving front here in play, and all of that moisture as well. So a couple of those ingredients coming together and making for quite a mess. So if we put this into motion there, maybe Mike can do that for me. Taking a look at this storm system again, moving into some different areas by the time we do get to tomorrow. Meeting up with all of that unstable air, of course. This has been one of the main ingredients. We've got the wind support as well, adding some spin in the atmosphere. So that is going to be the case then over the next couple of days, really Wednesday in through Thursday at this point. So moving on here, we've got the upper level wind support. Here's our red zone for tomorrow. And again, looking at places like Davenport, Iowa, back into Chicago, the UP of Michigan, Detroit, all the way over to Syracuse at this point. And then as we look at our Torcon index, much of Wisconsin, lower Michigan, looking at about a 30% chance of a tornado along with that within a 50-mile radius. Putting this into motion, this is Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, here we go. Moving on. Chris mentioned some of those storms coming through Chicago, and then this is a look at Wednesday morning, looking at a lot of those storms in Michigan at this point. So just maybe even into the outskirts of Detroit as of 8 o'clock in the morning. All right, let's talk about what's still to come here. A lot of wildfires still burning across the western U.S. Active U.S. fires greater than 100 acres right now at 48. You'll see many of them here in Arizona, back up into Nevada and Utah. Certainly in California, also dealing with some of the fire dangers and some very hot, dry weather out in these parts. The good news is the monsoon season is starting to get going a little bit. So we're getting some of that moisture here from the south, the Pacific, and from the Gulf starting to fire, pretty typical for this time of year. With that, though, we will see increased chances for thunderstorms. Some of those, though, could have dry, low-level lightning. So that's not good news because that could spark yet even more fires. But still, any moisture we start to get in here is going to be helpful for as we move through time here for this week and through the near future. So we'll look for some of that deepest moisture to be in the southern end of this region. But certainly some of that will even get up into the plains by the time we get into late week here. When we look at the latest on the Schaefer fire, this is the one in Southern California in between Bakersfield and Death Valley here. Close to 15,000 acres already burned here in the Sequoia National Forest. It's 11% contained as we speak, and it's creeping off to the east about a mile a day. So firefighters there do have their work cut out for them. I mentioned the moisture, the relative humidity, which is a big factor when it comes to wildfires. You want more of that to help suppress the fires. Not getting a whole lot of it in here just as of yet, but as I mentioned, we will see some minor increases in that as the week progresses. Windy conditions as well, though, as we take the winds in motion here, still looking at those erratic, gusty winds, which make it even harder for the firefighters out there on the front lines to do their jobs. So, and also for the aircraft to get up in the air in some cases to dump the retardant on the fires. So they've got the work cut out for them, right, Chris? Speaking of tomorrow, more potential for severe weather. Our setup still in place. Here's all that low-level moisture, our line here moving very slowly off to the east. So really still looking at all of those ingredients holding together even into Thursday for that matter of this week. So for tomorrow, here's a look at our red zone as we call it, now stretching back over here across the Great Lakes into Syracuse and Buffalo, but certainly much of Michigan, Wisconsin, back into Ohio, maybe even Chicago getting a few more strong to severe storms on your Wednesday. So our Torcon index is a 3 for much of Wisconsin and for lower Michigan. About a 30% chance of a tornado there for you in a 50-mile radius. As we do track this out, that's a look at 2 o'clock, and then we move beyond that into the evening hours, as Chris was mentioning, into Wednesday. Here comes some more storms through Michigan Wednesday morning, just on your doorsteps in Detroit. Moving on from there by around lunchtime back into portions of maybe even upstate New York, Vermont. You could be getting some strong storms at this point, but certainly some pockets of storms still developing even as we get into the wee hours of the morning Wednesday into Thursday morning. More storms maybe for Detroit once again, so maybe 2 or 3 rounds for you there in Detroit over the next couple of days. So if we take a closer look here at Chicago, nothing too active showing up until we get into the overnight early morning hours. Here it comes around 8 o'clock in the morning right across the state line there, Waukegan back down into probably Racine and eventually possibly into Chicago by before noon tomorrow. So Chris, more strong storms in some of the same exact places. I know folks are probably getting pretty tired of.